inspirations, spotlighting gospel sensation. Motivation and inspiration for your eternal destination. Let's talk about it. It's the Mary W. Robinson Show.
Stay tuned for the Larry W. Robinson Show.
Celebrated media personality Larry W. Robinson presents Gospel Updates. Gospel Updates is the who, what, when, why, and where in the gospel music industry. Gospel Updates is a monthly magazine, weekly newsletter, video webcast, as well as a podcast. Gospel Updates has over 25 years of featuring people in the gospel music community. Gospel Updates magazine and the new Gospel Updates weekly newsletter document those who are continuing to help shape and write new chapters of this ever-evolving story of gospel. Go to www.gospelupdates.com. That's www.gospelupdates.com to get the latest issues. If you want to be featured, call or text 337-214-4046 or email gospelupdates@gmail.com for rates and details. Gospel Updates, featuring people in the gospel community for over 25 years.
You're listening to the Larry W. Robinson Show.
My guest tonight is former pro basketballer, aircraft pilot, reality TV dad, author, pastor, and musician. Ben Tankard is known as the godfather of gospel jazz and is the #1 best-selling gospel jazz musician on the planet. So I'm honored to speak with you again tonight, Pastor Ben. How you doing, man?
Good to see you, Larry, man. Haven't seen you in a while. You're looking great, brother.
I know. Listen, I don't think I had an opportunity to say, again after we did it, but I want to say thank you. Several years ago, my pastor at the time was celebrating a birthday, and we asked him what gift would he like. And he said he would like us to get Ben Tankard to come to the church. And we were a small church, and I was like, ooh. But I reached out, and I think you were on the Mercy tour at the time. And so reached out, and you came to our little church. And I'm so appreciative of that. Actually, you know what? Let me take that back. Not our little church, because I don't believe anything in the kingdom is little, but you came to our church and blessed the people of God and the people in our city. So thank you so very much, brother.
Our pleasure, man. We're here to serve you guys. Good to see you guys again. We celebrating 30 years in music ministry. We're celebrating the 4th season of our reality show, Thicker Than Water, and we're celebrating a brand new record, #1 on the chart, called Shine. So we got a lot to say.
Yeah, congratulations. I was going to say congratulations, #1 on the Billboard Smooth Jazz National Airplay chart. And then also Thicker Than Water is on CJC TV. Tell us about that.
Yeah, you know that we started with Bravo.
Mm-hmm.
3 seasons over a 5-year span with Bravo, and then our contract ended, and then we had to make a choice if we was going to continue and sign a long-term deal with Bravo, or to stop doing TV, or do it on our own with our own terms. And we chose letter C to do it ourselves. We got some advice from Steve Harvey and watching Tyler Perry and Oprah and people like that, Matthew Johnson. We felt like it was time for our community to own our own content, and that way we could decide what was seen and not seen, and not just be doing a bunch of foolishness just to entertain and somebody else gets all the revenue from it. I'm not judging anybody on reality TV, but those people that be cutting the fool don't even own the videos that they're cutting the fool on. So we just decided not to go back to Bravo because that's a drama network. Thank God for the start, but we want to do this ourselves and control the content. And it's going pretty good, man. We launched last week, and we're on the CJC network. Everybody's watching everything on their hands anyway. Stream, iPhone, iPad, computer. And so you can see us on TV. channel 170 on the Distro TV network. CJC is the network, or you can just go to our website, the Tankards, and on the information with Facebook tells you how you can download or even purchase on demand each episode. So it's getting us straight to the hearts of the people without having to sit in front of a TV and find the remote and find Bravo.
You'll stay there. How have you been able to pivot, especially in the midst of the pandemic? And let me not assume. Have you been traveling, going to churches like you came to our church, or have you kind of been doing less traveling, but doing more digital media and ministry?
Interesting enough, when the devil starts messing, God gets the blessing. So in 2020, when concerts got canceled, when churches were closed, ironically enough, 2020 was my greatest year financially.
Wow.
Record sales went up 1,000%. We didn't have the travel revenue, but the concerts and the streaming went up. I started doing a concert right from here every Sunday on Sunday evenings for 1 hour. Man, that made my royalties jump out the roof. So we were making 100 times more sitting at home than we were trying to travel every single weekend. Now, I love people, and I support opening up, and I love to fly my plane, and I'm coming back to your churches, but we didn't have to do it to survive. God really blessed us.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, because a lot of people are still trying to shift and still trying to pivot and navigate through this time. So I'm glad that God was still a sustainer, as he said he would be. Amen. Well, let's stay there. How can singers and musicians that are artists navigate their careers during this pandemic when there seems to not be opportunities for them to do live concerts, etc.? So what advice would you give to them?
Well, I believe that sometimes your passion does not feed you. And sometimes your passion needs to be fed for a season. And so you have to pivot, and you might have to do something. I say this: if you're a singer or a musician that can sing or play in more than one key, that's proof you can do more than one thing to create revenue. So you might have to open up that donut shop. You might have to sell used cars. You might have to have your lawn care. You might have to have other streams that might make more money than the music was making anyway. And then you can take some of that revenue and channel it back into the music, and then give the music the proper marketing that you need for it to be exposed to sell anyway. I started doing binary trading this last year, and Larry, I make more in 3 minutes on one financial trade than most concert artists make all month trying to get out and do concerts for money. And so there's more than one way to skin a cat, but if you have tunnel vision to where all you want to do is music, then be prepared to starve if music isn't playing at the time.
And what would you say to maybe the artists that really this is all they've done? A lot of artists have started really as PKs and had to learn how to do music because their parents, were over churches, and then they've kind of made it into a career, and they're really fearful about getting into something else because this is pretty much all they've done.
Yeah, well, we don't do one thing 24 hours out the day anyway. Mm-hmm. Most churches are playing during church. Church is on Wednesday, church is on Sunday. So the rest of the time that you binge watching Netflix, you should be learning that while you're sleeping or while you're camping out in the music store, playing around on the keyboards, trying to buy something that you can't afford just because you're keeping up with the Joneses with the latest keyboard. You need to pivot. That's what makes everybody great in their different areas of expertise. Learn how to pivot with the times. Even in basketball, the most important thing is to learn how to move on your pivot foot, because sometimes the enemy is going to try to stop you from getting to your goal. But if you pivot and go around them, you still can win the game because you've learned how to pivot. If you have a one-track mindset, then I don't think that's what God wants us to do. He wants us to be flexible. Just like when you're playing in a service and a minister goes another direction. You can't keep playing what you were playing 5 minutes ago just because you like it. He went from loud to soft. He went from worship to warring. You got to be cunning in a musician. As a musician, you got to be equally as cunning in the workforce.
That's good. Well, you learned how to pivot early on because you originally started out as a basketball player. And I know you probably have told this story a million times, but just for those that are listening on our podcast or are listening to us streaming live on Facebook or YouTube, tell us how you had to pivot from basketball. You went to a service one night. I love the way the Saints used to say that. I went to a service one night and God did something amazing for you. Tell us about that.
Well, you know the story, Larry, because I was in poverty and my parents were on welfare, powdered eggs, powdered milk, and stuff like that. And we didn't have anything. We were on government assistance. We had food stamps. And so my way out of the ghetto was going to be basketball. Even though I liked music and played tuba in the band, I really liked the fact that if I make it to the pros, I can come back and get my mom and dad out of this mobile home, get them out of this shotgun house. So I was 6'6" by the time I was in the sixth grade. Very good basketball player. Had 30 scholarship offers when I graduated from high school. So I went to Alabama on a scholarship and dropped out after 1 year and went pro. Here I am, going to be coming off the bench behind Clyde the Glide Drexler for the Portland Trailblazers if I can just get through camp. But I didn't get through camp. I got injured in camp and they cut me from the team. So you can imagine how depressing that was to be born in the hood and no education. And all you got to fall back on is your basketball skills, and then they cut you because you're injured. I went to church and got saved, and the minister prayed for my hands and told me to sit on the piano. And I began to play like a professional jazz musician the first time I played. I said, all right, there you have it. That's what I'm going to do. But Larry, back in 1988, 89, in Pentecostal churches, you wasn't hearing no jazz. So they really weren't having it. So before I could become who you see me now as a renowned artist, I had to pivot and take another job to keep food on the table. So for 5 years, I was a dog catcher.
Really?
I got new talent that God has given me, and I think this talent is going to put me on the big stage, but nobody cares because they haven't heard of gospel jazz before. So the gospel people were saying, man, that's too jazzy. And the jazz people were saying, man, that's too gospel. Get out of here. So I had to catch dogs to eat.
And which project was that on? Was that on, or had you recorded yet?
That was before any project.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
You know, so I'm catching dogs in Tallahassee, Florida, and I got a dog catching uniform on. Joel Osteen tells this story. I got a dog catching uniform on, and I go into a music store that sells pianos and organs. And I started playing around on their keyboards, and somebody that was shopping for a piano heard me playing. And she tells the store owner, hey, I'll buy the piano that the dog catcher is playing.
Wow. Did you get a few coins, a few commissions from that sale?
No, I got more than that. He offered me a job as a keyboard demonstrator.
Wow.
So that's how I graduated from catching dogs to being a full-time keyboard demonstrator. This is God working behind the scenes. But had I not went in there on my lunch break with my dog catcher uniform on, with no money, and started playing around on the keyboard as if I can afford to buy it, he might not have, that lady would have never said, I'll buy the piano that the dog catcher's playing. He might not have ever hired me. And I might not have ever had a job that paid me 8 hours a day to play the piano, which is how I started developing my skill and learning equipment. This thing is a marathon, not a sprint. Yeah. And so that's my story, man. And I was able to develop a home studio, make my own first recording. Somebody from Nashville heard it, hired me and moved me from Nashville, from Tallahassee, Florida to Nashville, made me the president of a black division of a new record label. And that's when I discovered Yolanda Adamson and signed her.
Yeah, I was just going to say, let's talk about that, because I guess I first came to know you with Tribute Records. And then, of course, playing, you played on, was it Through the Storm on some of those first records?
40 songs I played with Yolanda.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one of the most memorable moments, and people have probably seen this a million times on YouTube. If not, go find it. But Yolanda Adams is singing "Even Me" at the Stellar Awards.
Right.
Yeah, and Ben Tankard, he's there on the piano playing. And I'm not going to give it away, but it's just an amazing experience. If you haven't seen it yet, go check that out.
Yeah, that's my story. So I believe in pivoting, and then I became a record company president and was producing other artists like Yolanda Adams and Shirley Murdoch and Twinkie Clark and Kelly Price. And then I got so busy with my own schedule that I retired from the record label and just went full-time music ministry. And then I went into pastoring, and then NBC shows up and says, "Hey, we want you to have a reality show with your blended family. We think it'd be cool to follow your Black Brady Bunch." And well, big mansion in Tennessee with everybody under the same roof. That's going to be fun TV right there. So they started shooting, and we have 3 awesome seasons. And then we graduate from that into owning the show and producing it ourselves, and pastoring a church and being an airplane pilot. My wife teaches women how to be millionairesses. And, God is in the comma business. People are in the period business. They'll say stuff like, "Well, all I know how to do is play the piano. All I know how to do is data entry, period." But that's demonic. God is in the comma business. People will say, "Oh, that's Larry. He's just high school dropout." But God will say, "Yeah, he dropped out of school. But that's Larry, comma, the producer, comma, the man of God, comma, the creator, comma, the developer." He's always working on what's next. The people and the enemy are into the period business, but God is into the comma business. There's a comma coming in your life, Larry.
Come on. you know what I was going to say? I didn't want to cut you off, though. I didn't drop out of high school. I graduated high school and went to college, but I did get kicked out of kindergarten for talking and asking questions. And I often say that when I'm speaking to people. I got literally kicked out of kindergarten for talking and asking questions. And now I get paid to talk and ask questions. Ain't God good?
There you have it. Out of the guts comes the glory. There you have it.
All right. Hey, so Pastor Ben, I want to have some fun. I'm going to move into some questions that we have from our listeners. And if you're watching our conversation live, go ahead and make some comments in the comment section and let us know that you're tuned in. And but I'm going to give you the fun questions first. And then we'll get probably to some more serious questions. But here's a fun question. It comes from Victoria and Kyle from California. That's all they wanted me to say about them. They're a married couple in California, Victoria and Kyle. But they want you to help them solve a debate that they're having in their home. They want to know if an instrumentalist and instrumental project is a project with no singing, or a project where one instrument is the featured element of the project.
I don't understand the question.
So the way Kyle told it to me, he says his wife thinks that instrumentalist is or instrumental project is a project that has no singing. So when he asked her to put on some instrumental music, she'll put on instrumental music, but it has no singing in the background. Well, he likes instrumental music, kind of like your music. He likes instrumental music, but has just very little singing in the background. So they're having a debate on what's really instrumental music. Is it music with no singing in the background, or is it music with very little singing in the background and maybe one instrument is featured on the project? For instance, like a saxophonist, Angela Christie, Ben Tankard keyboard. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Instrumental music is that in itself. It's instrumental. You can have let's just say you put on a Yolanda Adams record. Before she starts singing, there is an instrumental introduction. And so the instruments will make up the instrumental part. But if there is vocal stylings and vocal background, BGBs we call them, that's just to enhance. That's just a sweetener to the instrumental. So if you got fried chicken and you put something Just because you put salt and pepper on it doesn't make it not fried chicken anymore. It just makes it a more seasoned fried chicken. So it's instrumental music, but the background just gives it more seasoning. And I like to put words and phrases just so I can guide the people's thinking toward what I was thinking when I wrote the song. And so if you got heavenly vibes and you put some oohs and ahs and a heaven in there somewhere, it causes them to, oh yeah, that's heavenly vibes. But if it's just instrumental, people's mind can wander and think what they want to think, which sometimes is good. But if you want to get a thought across, sometimes you have to put a word in there just to guide the thinking.
Gotcha. Oh, and just random thoughts. Song of Solomon. That project is one of my favorites. And then, of course, Let's Get Quiet is another one of my favorite Ben Tankard projects.
Yes, sir.
All right. So another fun question, and my friend does not think I'm going to ask this question, but I am. My friend Elijah Guillory Jr., he is the founder of the LJ Foundation for Parkinson's Awareness. So he does good work, but he has a silly brain. His question is, Pastor Ben, what makes you so special that you get invited to the Larry W. Robinson show before me, and I've been friends with Larry for more than 20 years?
Well, if he would have flown his airplane,
Come on, tell him.
a single engine airplane through storms and rain and sunshine and clouds to come to a small church in Lake Charles 20 years ago, then he would have got the invitation too. So.
Good answer. Good answer. All right. Some serious questions now. Well, I'm not really serious, but Timothy Sims, he's a singer and songwriter out of Atkins, South Carolina, or Aikens, South Carolina, I think is how you pronounce that, wants to know what inspired the combination of jazz with your gospel music?
Oh, that's a good question. I was in church when God anointed me to play. And I began to play what God put in my heart. And what came out is what you hear. And so when I started practicing a lot, I would listen to music that did not have words because I wanted to hear those chords and mimic those chords. And I found out that smooth jazz music was the music that had the most or closest chord structures to gospel that didn't have words on it. So that's what I end up listening to. And what you hear all the time gets in your spirit. And so people would say, oh man, that's kind of jazzy. That's kind of smooth. So I said, why not just call it gospel jazz? Because the songs that I'm playing are hymns or songs that people know, like What Is This from the Hawkins or Going Up Yonder from Edwin. You know, those songs that I played were gospel songs, but I just played them in a jazzy style. So the jazz was the vehicle, but gospel was the passenger. That's what I'm calling it, gospel jazz. Up until that point, there were gospel artists that had a jazz song in their repertoire when they did a live concert, and like Daryl Coley, people like that, or Vanessa Bell, they sung jazzy, but they didn't call themselves gospel jazz artists. And then there were jazz artists that would sing Wade in the Water or, Amazing Grace. Everybody in jazz had some sort of gospel song in their repertoire. And people had done that for years, but nobody ever put the two together as 10 songs and called it a gospel jazz project or called themselves a gospel jazz artist until I did it in 1989, which makes me the godfather of gospel jazz.
Come on, Godfather.
First one that thought of it, I'm the first one that did it.
Got you. All right. Jessica Young, singer and songwriter out of Atlanta, Georgia, has this question. Do you believe that today's gospel music transformed the lives of people and is making an impact in our society?
I do, because music is simply words, moving words. It's just conversation. And so when you hear songs, you hear the thoughts of the day, the thoughts of the time, the encouragement of the time. So I applaud those who are moving forward and recording and singing and keeping the words of encouragement out there, because it's just communication. Take the music out and you still got the word.
Got you. All right. So we'll stay right there. Shanta Moore, she's a gospel recording artist and a radio host on the OPNS 97.1 radio station, where she says we play Ben Tankard every night on our smoothest gospel jazz broadcast. She wanted me to throw that plug in for you. But she says, what would you change about today's music industry?
Oh, I would get more intentional if I could change the gospel music industry. I still think it suffers from the hireling spirit. I believe that so many artists jump ship and will go to different churches and play for a salary, and they care nothing about the pastor or the message of the pastor. All they want to know is, will you pay me $50 more per Sunday than the last guy paid me? And that hireling spirit causes you to have the wrong people that are out front representing you, and it puts you under the wrong ministry. If you don't believe what this man is preaching, why would you take his money and provide music behind his preaching if you don't agree with the message that's coming forward? So I think the hireling spirit makes evil connections and untrue connections, wherein if musicians develop their resources and were millionaires in their own right, they could just go ahead and play where God told them to play, and it would not matter how much they were getting paid if they took anything at all.
Wow.
I kind of get beat up for saying stuff like that, but I'm rich enough not to care.
I love it. All right. My friend Malik Woods Terry, she's a singer and a musician, an amazing singer, an amazing musician out of Lafayette, Louisiana. She says, how do you maintain your relevancy, especially with the different genres of instrumental music we have out today?
I just be myself. I believe if you be yourself, just be yourself. Everybody else is already taken. I believe you can have musical, what do I want to call it, schizophrenia. If you every single month based on what's hot and what's not. Just be you. Just do what God told you to do. And he's wise enough to put new concepts and new themes and new chords and new lyrics into your heart to match the times. You don't have to try to do it. Just be yourself, and you be the instrument, and allow God to play you, and you'll always be playing in the right key.
Ooh, that's good. I'm gonna quote you on that. I'll give you the credit the first time, and then I'll just keep saying
God has been around forever.
Yeah.
But he's still the same.
Yeah.
So if you go to Genesis 1, it's still gonna say in the beginning. I don't care if you're wearing bell bottoms or high tops. When you go to Genesis 1, I don't care if you got a VHS or a cell phone, or if you're beaming yourself into the sky like Star Trek. God is always the same. So if you put him in your business, you'll always be the same, yet you'll always be relevant.
That's good.
I'll always be in style because he's the one that's playing.
I love it. Well, listen, our last question. You really answered the question in Thicker Than Water, the Tankards, and people can watch that go to thetankards.com and you'll find out more information about how you can watch it. And you basically answered this on the show because I've seen it, but Marcus G. Morton is the worship pastor in Atlanta, Georgia. He wants to know, how do you manage your family and music career?
I try to include them as much as possible. If you put your family, and I had to learn this the hard way because my family used to be in competition with my career aspirations. But those of you who are just getting going, if you put your family in the middle of your vision, then whenever you look at your vision, you're looking at your family. So what you want to do is you want to try to include them. If you have young children, if you have to leave to go on the road, make them part of it. Hey, daddy's getting ready to go on the road. Can you bring daddy's socks? Bring daddy's shoes. Help daddy pack the bag. And daddy's going to bring you something special when he comes back from this trip. What do you want dad to bring you? So they'll look forward to daddy leaving if they know daddy's going to bring something back. But if it's always oh, dad leaving again, and they never see any benefit from dad leaving, then they become hardened towards the ministry, hardened toward the career, not just even if it's music, but you could be an insurance salesman. But if you don't include your kids in what you're doing, they will grow up hating insurance.
Wow. That's good. Well, Pastor Ben, I know we talked a lot about artists and music when we first started, but any final thoughts and comments you have for just someone who just living life and having to go through, of course, people are losing loved ones to COVID-19. They're maybe not being able to return back to jobs that they thought they would have for 20 and 30 and 40 years. 40 years. What advice do you have for them to reassure them that God is, as you said, the same yesterday, today, and forever, and he still has their best interest at heart and still can supply all their needs according to his riches in Christ Jesus?
That's a good question, Larry. And first, let me say how we are praying for those. We have all lost friends or family or loved ones or twice removed loved ones to COVID, and we've all lost some sort of resource or we've seen some change. There's a new normal, and then normal sometimes is scary. And so let me say my heart goes out to everyone. But I will say again that when the devil starts the messing, God gets the blessing. But you have to look for the blessing in the middle of the mess. You have to look for the message in the mess. So, as a musician, I look at things through the eyes of a musician, David. Who was the greatest musician of our time. But he's writing songs and singing them to the sheep. He doesn't have an audience. He's singing to animals. You might not have ever heard his top 10 hits. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Had it not been for the giant in his life. And we're facing a COVID. That's a giant. Coronavirus is a giant. So he had to defeat Goliath, and Goliath was not sent to take him out. Goliath was sent to make him famous. Oh, wow. And so the bigger the challenge, the bigger the victory. And so rather than run away from our Goliath, we should go ahead and chop the head off of that sucker so they can go ahead and make us famous. I believe in, I call it pandemic favor. There's a pandemic out there, but I believe there's some pandemic favor, opportunities, resources, jobs, promotions, real estate, state transfers, sweepstakes, awards, money found on the ground, checks in the mail. I believe in confession, all that, rather than repeating all these statistics of who's dying and who's not, because you're going to hear that enough of that on TV. God's people need to put different words in their mouth. And I'd say I'm quick, I'm sharp, I'm gifted, I'm smart, I'm good looking, healthy, wealthy, and wise. I'm going to keep on talking big until it catches up with.
I love it. All right. Before we go, I want to encourage you to check out Gospel Updates magazine. Go to gospelupdates.com. Check out the latest Gospel Updates weekly at gospelupdates.com. Pastor Ben, where can we go to connect with the TV show, to get your music, to buy your book? I love it. I've read it several times. So how can we connect with you and the resources that you have available for people today?
At Ben Tankard, all my social media. And of course, you can just go to thetankards.com or bentankard.me, bentankard.me for information on my music, books, and CDs. And the show is thetankards.com. Of course, if you forget all that, just Google Ben Tankard or the Tankards, and all that will come back up. So we love you guys. Thank y'all for joining me. I'm about to catch a flight. Love you, Larry. I'm coming to see you soon.
Bless you, man.
Okay. Take care.
Thanks.
Stay tuned for the Larry W. Robinson Show.
Celebrated media personality Larry W. Robinson presents Gospel Updates. Gospel Updates is the who, what, when, why, and where in the gospel music industry. Gospel Updates is a monthly magazine, weekly newsletter, video webcast, as well as a podcast. Gospel Updates has over 25 years of featuring people in the gospel music community. Gospel Updates magazine and the new Gospel Updates weekly newsletter document those who are continuing to help shape and write new chapters of this ever-evolving story of gospel. Go to www.gospelupdates.com. That's www.gospelupdates.com to get the latest issues. If you want to be featured, call or text 337-214-4046 or email gospelupdates@gmail.com for rates and details. Gospel Updates, featuring people in the gospel community for over 25 years.
You're listening to The Larry W. Robinson Show.
inspirations, spotlighting gospel sensation. Motivation and inspiration for your eternal destination. Let's talk about it. It's a man.